Hello everyone, welcome to the Blue Valley North Library Media Center website. Today we're going to work on 123D design and we're going to make a little figure so you get used to the program. 123D design is on your desktop. The icon looks like this. So we're going to open the program. And you'll see that when it first opens, it is basically a welcome message. And then you see your build plate. I'm going to go ahead and make this full screen. All of your main tools are up here across the top. You also have some auxiliary tools over here on the right. This is pan or orbit, which lets you kind of move your image around. So we're going to start by making a little figure, and we're going to start by choosing a shape, which is right here under the primitives tab. We're going to start with a cylinder, and when you first click on cylinder, you're going to see it shows up on your screen and it will follow you around. Your radius and your height show up down at the bottom. You're going to start by making your radius 3. You can press tab and make your height 30. And when you press enter, that's going to set your figure where it is on the build plate. So if you still want to move it, you can. I'm just going to set it right here. Okay, so I click and set my figure. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and drag to rotate my view. Okay? So I can look at it from any angle that I want. You can also use the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. If you're having a hard time moving your view around, you can use this box up here on the top right. So if I wanted to look at my view from the top, I would just click on top and it shows me my shape from the very, very top. What I'm going to do now is everybody's going to make a sphere. So we're going to go back to that primitives tab and we're going to choose the sphere. We're going to bring it in and it's going to be gigantic, and we're going to set our radius to be 1.5. Everybody's setting their radius to be 1.5, then we press enter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sphere and I want to split it in half. So I'm going to pan a little bit so I'm right on top of that sphere looking down, and I'm going to make sure that my sphere is right on the center by clicking and dragging of these two grid lines, and that's going to help me separate this into two different pieces. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go up here to my tool menu under the sketch tool, which is the second one, and I'm going to choose what's called a polyline. And a polyline is this first line right here, and what a polyline lets us do is draw a two-dimensional line. So I'm going to click on polyline, and then I'm going to click on my grid, and I'm going to start from one end, I'm going to click the other end, and then when I've drawn the line that I want through the middle of my shape, I'm going to click on the green check mark to exit. So now I've got this line that's two-dimensional going through my three-dimensional shape, and you can kind of see that the line is just on the plate. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use what's called a split solid. Split solid is on the modify tab right here. So I'm going to go to modify, and I'm going to choose split solid, and what this lets us do is cut our shape in half. So first it asks us for the body to split, which is the sphere. I'm going to click on it. Then the splitting entity is what I'm splitting along. So I'm going to click on splitting entity, and then I'm going to click on my line once it's highlighted. And so what it does when I click out, you'll notice that my sphere is now into two pieces. And so there's this piece, and then there's also this piece. What I'm going to do now is zoom out a little bit, and we're going to rotate so I can see my figure. And these are going to be his feet, my little guy's feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of them, and I'm going to use the move tool down here. You can also get to it by clicking on this icon up here, this transform. So I'm going to use move, and you'll notice that these discs will let it rotate in all three dimensions. The arrows will let you move it in all three directions. So if I click on one of the arrows, it'll slide it left and right, or I can slide it up and down, or I can slide it forward and backward. These discs will let us rotate. So I'm going to turn it 90 degrees. And then you can see a shadow underneath it, which means it's floating a little bit. So I'm going to use the arrow and slide it down so it's touching the plate now. So now when I rotate, it's sitting right there on the plate. We're going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to use the move tool. I'm going to rotate it so it's flat, 90 degrees. And then I've got a little shadow, so I'm going to pull it down just a little bit. And now I've got my two semicircles on the plate. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just click and drag on one, And this smart moves. It only moves it forwards and backwards, left and right. It doesn't move it up and down. And I just made some little feet for my figure. And they're not perfectly even, but that's okay. If I want to make them perfectly even, I can. That concludes the first part of this particular lesson. We're going to move on to the next one. So get this how you like it, and once you're ready to move on, watch the next video. You are kidding me. That whole thing did not record.